Welcome to Story Night, where you hear true stories on a perceptive theme recorded live in Boise, Idaho. I'm Artistic Director Jodi Eichelberger. In this podcast, curated storytellers are intermixed with a spontaneous community story slam with a theme inspired by an emoji. For this show, our theme is the smiling face with sunglasses. Paul Primus, Sarah Inama, and Dakotah Brown are the cool cats featured. Get your sunglasses on. These stories are shining bright. Welcome to the beginning of our 16th season. We're 16 now. We can date now. I'm Jodi Eichelberger, the Artistic Director of Story Night, and this is the beginning of my 9th season, so I can't date yet. I'm only 9. Did some of you come through the front door tonight, or did everyone come up from the garage and other places? Did anyone come through the front door? Oh, okay, so you might have seen the giant inflatable with the sunglasses. Yeah, so smiling face with sunglasses. If you haven't seen it, maybe exit that way so you can experience this enormous orb that is the inflatable emoji. Someone came in the spirit of the emoji, though, because they left these gloves at box office. And look, it is a smiling face emoji. It doesn't have sunglasses, it's winking. So if you left these gloves, first of all, thank you for fully participating in our theme. And we'll have these for you at the Slammer booth, so you can pick those up. And then you can put your name in to tell a story, too. Sometimes I'm asked about how we come up with the themes for the season, and it can be a bit random. Like one year, I was just thinking, we have 6 shows this season. What are things that come in 6s? And discovered that there are 6 chess pieces. So we're like, okay, each one's going to be a chess piece. One year, I was looking at my old tape recorder that I had as a kid and noticed it had 6 buttons. So we did play, record, rewind with the 6 buttons that are on my tape recorder. This year is a little different. What actually it came from is seeing the inventory list for Jump's vast collection of inflatables. And thinking, I wonder if there's a way, wouldn't that be fun to set up inflatables at the show? And how could we structure the themes? Well, one thing they had many of were inflatable emojis. So we based our season of themes on Jump's inflatable emojis. That's how it works. And so we're starting with smiling face with sunglasses, the cool emoji. And then the other emojis, I think, are a little smaller. They're not quite as big as that one, so they'll join us up here in the lobby, so that'll be fun. But we have people who inflate us. That segue's not as smooth as who blow us up, no. Who expand us, allow us to expand what we do. There we go. That's the segue I'm looking for. And those people are our Story subscribers. They're monthly supporters. Raise your hand if you're a Story subscriber. Great. Thank you for being here with us tonight. And you can become a Story subscriber too on our website. Just go to support and you'll find Story subscriber and you can log in. These people support us every month, and then in exchange for that, they can log in to their account and get tickets to our shows, including the late night shows. In fact, in December, Story subscribers will be able to get free tickets to late night on December 15th and the flagship on December 30th. So sometimes it's actually also a really good deal. We also want to thank our returning season sponsor, Keenly. Thank you, Keenly. And what's kind of fun about tonight is our previous season sponsor for many years is our show sponsor tonight. So they're kind of sharing the evening tonight, and that is Boise Group. Thank you, Boise Group. They're handing out calendars. If you didn't catch one on your way in, the table will be set up during intermission too. But I also have a message from them here, so I'm just going to start right off with that. When it comes to selling Boise homes, the agent on the Boise Group team always try to keep things smiling and cool. But honestly, they're more like the smiling face with nerd glasses. Total data nerds who love digging into the numbers to help people make smart real estate decisions. Whether you're buying or selling, Boise Group is ready to deliver exceptional service, including professional staging on every listing and concierge service for every client. The kind that actually does leave you feeling, smiling, and cool. Thank you, Boise Group. Now, when I first moved to Boise back in 2014, or I should say returned to Boise back in 2014, I kind of felt like I was semi-retired. I'd had a career in film and television, and I was moving to Boise and didn't know what I was going to do. So my idea was to set up a steampunk coffee and tea bike along the Greenbelt, which I did for actually a couple of years over by the 36th Street footbridge down in Garden City. Yeah. And my uniform, I had a bowler with the goggles and like music box pieces and gear accoutrement. That was the beginning of my steampunk. I always wore sunglasses. I wore all black with a vest. I had the spring kind of bartender or poker. I didn't actually know what they were for. Maybe poker dealer. Striped pants and black boots. And I was at this big cargo bike with a white and black striped umbrella. And every day I would roll my bike out and head out there with cold brew coffee, tea and test tubes. And I had these glass orbs that you would pour the tea in and pour the hot water. And my day would just last as long as my hot water would last that I had in these big pots on the side. Spent a lot of time reading books. Also made some coffee. But I felt especially cool because one of my returning customers was this young teenage guy who seemed like the kind of kid who defined what cool was. I mean, he was often by himself, he was riding his bike around, and he would roll up to the bike and he'd ask for some tea. We didn't talk a lot to each other. I would say, well, what kind of tea do you want? I've got this today, I've got this, I've got this. And once I got to the one, he'd just go, yeah. So I'd take the test tube, I would dump the tea into the glass orb, I would grab the pot of the gooseneck and pour the hot water into it and let it steep. And we didn't really have conversation while it was steeping. We kind of just stood there. Me and my sunglasses and him astride his bike, kind of looking at me, but not really looking at me. He'd kind of flip his brown hair over and kind of glance sideways. And then once the time had come that the tea was steeped, I'd press the little button with the cup underneath, and the tea would fall into the cup. I'd grab it, put a lid on it, pass it to him, and say, here you go. And he'd say, see ya. Really cool. But one day, he came back for some tea, same routine, got the tea, dumped it in, hot water, letting it steep. But then I said, I think it's really cool how you want to try new things. And then I saw it happen. He kind of looked up at me real quick, and I could see it in his eyes the moment I went from cool to not cool. And I'm not sure what happened. I think it's that I said too much, or that maybe I'd said more words than just names of tea and see ya, and he got something about my personality, or maybe got an insight about who I am more than just the steampunk guy. Because up to then, I'd been almost this icon, this guy standing at this steampunk bike, making tea and coffee. And then when I put words to it, I became something else more than that. Which maybe is what emojis do too. It takes the place of words. So it has a power that exists, but then when you try to translate that to words, something goes away. Just in the theme tonight, you see that yellow face with the dark glasses and the little smirk. But then when we put it in words and say, tonight's theme is smiling face with sunglasses, doesn't quite work the same way. Which means that our theme, the whole thing we've set up for this season, is a little dangerous. Because we're requiring our storytellers to come up here and put words to a thing that is wordless. And that's what's going to happen. How many first-timers do we have here tonight? Never been to Story Night before? Oh, wow, quite a few. Great, welcome. Some of you maybe are here for Thanksgiving. Yeah, we'd like to support our visitors. So let me tell you a little bit about the show then. We are 3 featured storytellers intermixed with a community story slam. So that means 3 individuals we've approached them in advance, we've rehearsed together, we've gone through their stories, they've had a little time to work on them. And the bonkers thing about Story Night, we're the only storytelling show, I think, in the country, perhaps the world, that does this. We have these people who have practiced and fretted over their words, and we mix them up with people who maybe just came up with a harebrained idea in the moment and threw their name in the hat over the slammer booth and came up here and shared something that later we all wonder, why did they think that was a good thing to share? But it only lasts 5 minutes, so the curated stories, they're more 10 to 12 minutes. The slammer stories, sometimes, honestly though, the slammer stories are the best stories of the whole night. They're just amazing. And to become a story slammer, it's very easy. You just go visit Susan and Ben over here at our slammer booth, write your name on a little ticket, and give it to them, and then during the show, they're gonna bring those up to me, and I'll draw one, and you'll get a chance to come up. Now, here's some things that are cool about being a slammer. One is, it's really cool if you put your own name in the slammer booth. That's really cool. Another thing that's really cool is if your story is event-based, meaning things happen in your story. This is not a platform for imparting your knowledge of the economic system in India or of religion or a political campaign. These are things that happen to you in your life. And also what's cool for you and the audience listening is to listen with curiosity. Not every story will have things in it that are maybe the way you would have done them. And maybe it represents something that you don't appreciate. That's okay. But the only appropriate response really is applause at the end of the story. If you need to leave, that's cool. You can go out the door, take a break, come back later, but we don't want to know about it, basically. No, you can write me an email later and tell me what your experience was, but we don't want to know during the show. Let's just say it that way. So those are all cool things. And the other thing about tonight's show that made it especially hard is normally you can self-submit to be a featured storyteller. So any of you could write in to story@storystorynight.org and say, I want to be a featured storyteller. Here's my idea. And then we also recruit people. But what we realized about this cool show is cool people don't really know they're cool. So no one self-submitted for this show tonight. Nobody. I don't know if that's an embarrassment thing, like, I'm really cool and people want to hear my story, because normally there's not that extra baggage with the theme. So I had to find people who, in the community that I kind of thought were cool, or I actually asked other people in our community via some online platforms, like, who do you think is cool? And people sent in names. And we got their contact information and said, you've been nominated. So, in reverse order of how we're going to hear their stories, the story after intermission tonight, I'm going to call it Cool on Stage. Reputation, reputation, reputation. Oh, I've lost my reputation. Dakotah Brown is coming to here. Make your way up. And then, Cool on the Waves, we have, dude, that's sick. Paul Primus. Head on up. Okay. Now I'm getting nervous that none of them are here tonight. Are you guys, where's Dakotah and Paul? Yeah, come on up, pick a seat. Oh, phew. That's getting a little tense. So I was like, okay, so back to the steampunk coffee bike. I haven't talked to you about coffee yet. But first up to the mic, and coming directly to you, our first featured storyteller. It's her first time at Story Night. She's cool for school. Everyone is welcome. No, this is not, am I doing this in the wrong order? I'm totally doing this in the wrong order. Never mind. She's a little later. She's cool for school. Everyone is welcome here. Sarah Inama. But first up to the mic, we're all going to go surfing, folks. So hang high. Is that a phrase? Hang. There's hang something. Hang tight. I give up. Let me give it up to the person who knows the actual terminology. Ladies and gentlemen, I used to call him Optimus Primus, but his real name is Paul Primus.
All right, thanks, Jodi. Cool. So I'm going to tell a story that involves a lot of surfing. Basically, I grew up in the Midwest, and I was as landlocked as anybody could be. I had always dreamed about surfing, and seen footage of it, what it is, how much fun it looked. It looked like to do, because I was always also kind of a fish out of water, if you will. I have gills somewhere, I need to take a few showers a day or jump in the lake or something like that. So anything involving water sports I was immediately drawn to. But I definitely wasn't anywhere where surfing was available. The wake surf stuff hadn't been invented at the time, and all of that good stuff. So after living in the Midwest through high school, I moved out to Colorado, and still nowhere near the coast. I don't know why I didn't just make it straight to the coast, but I jumped onto all the other board sports, the fun stuff, the skateboarding and the snowboarding. I really moved out there for the snowboarding, and but still it never quite fulfilled what I was looking for, which was definitely surfing. It just seemed so far out of reach and so cool. The whole concept of cool is nothing I really ever associated myself with. I kind of saw it as always out of reach, like surfing was. Still kind of do see it that way. But as I creep towards the West Coast a little slower, I make my way to Boise, and I attend university here, which was another awesome thing. But as a fish out of water, I took up lap swimming just to, again, get my gills wet. And not professionally or anything, but I swam hard like I might as well have been. I should have joined a team or something. And then skateboarding a bunch and making friends that way and stuff. So it was still a good time. But it was really exciting afterwards. I found an opportunity to move to Portland, Oregon. And that was very interesting, tons of fun. But the main thing that I knew is that it was only an hour drive to where surfing was. So as soon as I get there, I am broke already, just working jobs like landscape jobs, and it rains all the time. So not a ton of money. So I took a credit card that like Wells Fargo makes you have with your college student account or something like that, probably like a 25% interest rate or something like that. And I didn't even have the card. I cut it up when I got it, but I called them and got the number for it, brought it to a surf shop in Portland on a piece of paper, had them run it that way, got myself a wetsuit, a surfboard, and everything I needed to go. And I had nobody to show me the ropes or anything. So I went at it alone. I got some other buddies to tag along who probably knew less about it than I did, and probably put them in danger as well as myself. But I was trying to make it out there 3 times a week. I mean, it was just all I wanted to do, and I was able to make that happen. But I was, in the salt water every day. It was just amazing. It was very intense though, or burly. I think that might be a surf term, but it means something that is just super intense and could be bad, right? So I don't really know what I'm doing out there. I just start paddling towards what we call a closeout wave, which is just the whole thing. There's nothing really surfable about it. It's just going to pound you down until the next one comes to do the same thing over again. And so I learned how to hold my breath against my will for a long time before I ever learned to surf, that's for sure. But eventually I was able to get it. I remember standing up on my first wave, and it wasn't even anything like a good surfer nowadays would consider a good wave, but it kind of was in the riptide that was going out to sea, so it was very slowly moving, almost like a standing wave. And I was able to stand up and surf on it for a while, and then I was able to slowly get more and more, just a few seconds of surf at a time in Oregon until I kind of learned it. And then, it rained too much, not enough landscaping happening, had to move to Boise to get a job. So I come back to Boise, and I immediately am going through surf withdrawals, like faster than I thought. I thought I'd probably get by a while. The whole intention was to make some money to get back to the coast somewhere. I didn't even care where. But in that, right off the bat, I'm like, okay, well, what can get me by? I need to go find some water activities. So, I was a regular constantly on the Greenbelt, around the ponds, Quinn's Pond and Veterans Pond and things like that. I would, hit the rope swings when they used to have those and have fun that way. And then I remember just skating up and down the Greenbelt. And one day I'm doing that, and I go by the 36th Street wave, right by the 36th Street bridge. And that is something that had been used by kayakers in the past, and maybe a few people trying to surf it as well. I didn't see anyone on it when I got there. It comes in at 8,000 CFS, which is flood stage, as high as the river gets, which happens maybe 1 in 5 years. So the timing of this was almost divine, because it was exactly what I was looking for, something to surf on, and it happened to be there. I'm looking at it, I'm saying, why can't I surf that? And so irresponsibly, just like my Oregon surf experience was, I just grabbed my board and wetsuit that were meant for the Oregon coast, nowhere near the right gear exactly for here, but I did it anyway, went out, couldn't really get it. It was a whole different dynamic. It was really difficult, but I knew it had to be possible. I was even doing research, online, just like, can you surf rivers? Is this a thing? It's got to be a thing. There's rapids everywhere. And in my attempts, there was another surfer having the same issue I was, rides his bike up down the Greenbelt, and he was a Pipeline Masters pro surfer in Hawaii. And he said, dude, I've been looking at that same thing. I think this is doable. And I gave him my wetsuit and board. He went out and showed me fluidity and paddling. I remember seeing him pop up on that wave and then immediately knew what to do. And that expedited this whole thing of river surfing becoming my new drive and all I wanted to do. And to be honest with you, when you talk about a fish out of water and what feels better, I like fresh water. So that worked out really well. So that continues. We chase a bunch of rapids all over Idaho and stuff like that. And as we continue this surf thing, I remember I was just like on the Greenbelt or towards the Veterans Pond rope swing one day, and I see a sign there, and it says Boise Whitewater Park being built. And I'm like, well, what is that? And could it make surf waves, And I had no idea. So I started kind of looking around, just trying to get information from people. And it turns out, yeah, it was going to be a huge, system that you can completely reshape the river with. That sparked this incredibly intense feeling in me, like, could that be someone's job to do that? To make waves, like, out of fresh water that the energy is already there and flowing? I didn't know yet, but what I did do is I went on the construction site without permission, of course, and just started talking to everybody I could, and just to learn as much as I could about it in every way, shape, and form. And so down the road, it opens up, and it is somebody's job to operate this thing, and it is a kayaker who has a whole kayak family. They're an incredible, incredible group of people, and he was extremely nice because I was very invasive, if you will, and I I couldn't help myself. So he was very generous though, and he made awesome kayak waves which could be surfed on. I was able to successfully surf on them, so I was already absolutely incredibly enthusiastic and just excited and grateful. But then I had to go approach him and say, can you tip this thing up and make that go back and make it a little bit of a greener face, we'll call it, as river surfers call it, to try to make it more ideal for standing up on a surfboard. And he did. He gave us some time to do it, which was really cool. And of course, I'm so fortunate to be on the front end of this thing. If something about this is cool, that is the coolest thing, is the timing. being able to be on the front end of this. There's a lot of other people involved that I haven't mentioned that were there with me throughout this process. And basically the job comes available, and you know, it's just kind of a side gig type thing. And it was actually, I applied for it. I didn't get it, but my buddy Ryan did. And so after that, he gets the job, and I volunteered every hour he worked. Because I had to. It was absolutely what drove me, and I was really fortunate that, you know, I could be that invasive with him as he already knew me and allowed it. Through that process, I learned the whole system. You know, it's fairly technical, but just so amazing, the beautiful waves that can be made, and wave holes and all sorts of, just for every type of craft out there. Extremely versatile, actually, still to the day. It probably has the most versatility. Boise, I think, is the front runner in all of this, and that's really cool. But Bend, Oregon is trying to be cool like Boise. And they start up their whitewater park. They come over and offer my friend Ryan more money. He goes there, and they're like, well, who's gonna run this park? I know how. I can do it. So fortunately, I was able to make my way into the position and get the job as the wave technician here. Thank you. And it's been an amazing experience. I always thought that this job would be extremely cool, and it is. I especially knew it was when, you know, it was in my first couple months there, I believe. I looked over and there was this guy selling coffee and tea wearing sunglasses. and I knew at that point that I had a cool job. Right there at the 36th Street Bridge. And but it's all really, it's been really interesting. I definitely, you know, the feeling is amazing to get to do something you're truly passionate about. I feel like there's a lot of people that talk about that, and I am extremely grateful that I actually get to do that. And on a regular basis, I believe every day it's, dude, you have the coolest job. And I'm like, reaching for a slice of humble pie, like, well, I was pulling a dead cat off the irrigation grate earlier, you know, and the water's cold, you know. I'm just trying to bring myself down to reality, because he's not wrong. I love the job so much. You know, all sorts of things happen related to cool. I know it turned into, I need to keep the public informed, so I'm always on, doing wave reports, letting everybody know what's happening with the waves and stuff. And because I'm always trying to sidle cool from one place or another, I keep my sunglasses on during those wave reports. And I got crap from our PR lady. She said, you need to take those sunglasses off, Mr. Cool Kid. And I said, okay. And I started putting them back on later. But I mean, amongst all that, the thing about it is, this happened here in Boise, and we are the coolest for it. And now it's happening in other cities, and that is probably the most fulfilling thing that I get out of it, to see what happened here happening in other cities. Because the thing that is the most cool of all of this is the community that it created. This community of Boise surfers here is second to none. Second place isn't even halfway there. I mean, they are the coolest. And I'm excited to see this happen in other cities as well. So, you know, so grateful to be a part of it, to be on the forefront of it, excited to see it expand throughout the country and the world. But ultimately, this job is cool. The community is even cooler, and I'm just kind of tagging along, trying to be cool by association. Thank you.
Hey got a poster and a sticker for sharing a story. And if you're a story slammer, you get a poster and a sticker too. I make that sound like it's optional, but it's actually mandatory. When I first set up there, as I mentioned, I just had moved back from New York, kind of known as the fashion capital of the world, sleek, cool people. I set up this bike in Boise, Idaho, along the Greenbelt, and I'm like looking around, and every person who's passing me is like an Adonis. I'm like, what is happening? Like, Ryan walks around in his board shorts all the time, doesn't even drink coffee and tea, but he would come up to the bike, and I was glad I had sunglasses on because he was distracting. I was like, everyone in Boise is so incredibly fit. It's amazing. It's crazy. All right, do we have anyone in our cooler, our little poll thing for slammers here? One of the things I forgot to mention that's also cool is our show is technically rated PG-13, and for the first time ever, we actually made available some student tickets, which some people got, although you all don't look that young, so I don't know. So please try to keep it. Oh, wow, they're actually chilled tonight. They're really cool. Oh, good. Okay. So keep that in mind with your content and your language. Oh, well, we have no problem with this one because she is one of our ringers. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Story Story Night, our own Story Story studio guide who has extreme luck in the slammer tickets, Patty O'Hara.
My mother had a very unusual way of reprimanding us growing up. She couldn't tell us directly what was wrong. She had to use her English literature major to give us some input. And she would often quote English literature. Like, she walked down in the basement once on my brother, and something is rotten in Denmark, she would say. She's waving the cigarette smoke around. Or my little brother would often stand and watch me do dishes, and I kind of complained about that a lot. Why does he get to play Legos and I'm doing this? Well, he also serves who stands and waits. Yeah, well, I'd like to play with my Hot Wheels while he does some dishes or something. And I remember the first time that she used the thing, and she did it in her Midwest accent. It was, oh, would some power the gift he give us to see ourselves as others see us? I remember the first time she said that one to me, and it was Easter Sunday, and we're all we're tearing around the house getting ready for Mass, and things are flying everywhere. This is a long time ago. Back when we wore these hats to church, especially on Easter Sunday, it was your first one for the summer. You had your new dress, something pastel, new shoes. Socks are flying, shoes are flying, hats are flying. We're tearing around. It wasn't that we were excited to go to church. It's that we wanted to get home so we could have our Sunday breakfast and then dig into our Easter basket. And so we're getting ready as fast as we can. Sean, can I wear your shoes? No, you've got Fred Flintstone feet. You're going to smash it. You're going to wreck my shoes. And my brother's sweat sock is lost and all this stuff. Finally, we get out the door. The bells are ringing for the church. We're only about 2 minutes away, and we have to go around a corner to get there. And when we arrive, my sister had to run back. She forgot her purse, so she's bringing up the rear. We walk in the church. It's a sea of pastel and suits and hats. The place was packed, jam-packed. So we're in trouble because we're late. But the good news is the usher came back and he said, well, you're going to have to sit up in the front pew because that pew is always empty. No one wants to sit up front. Well, all right. We look pretty fine. All right. Where's the red carpet? And he kind of leads us down the aisle. The four of us, my two brothers, me, my mother. My dad was home. He's Lutheran and had a church in his heart, so he was exempt. He's making pancakes. That's all we cared about. So we're walking down the aisle, but we are strutting. we look fine. It's like we're not supposed to want this, but it's okay. I got a new dress on. We're walking down the aisle. Check out the hat. Had this daisy chain ribbon down the back. My sister had one just like it. We both had daisy chain ribbons, so we're just like strutting. My brothers have their new white shirts and their white socks and their black shoes walking. We're up in the front row. We get in, hop in, and Mass is supposed to be an hour, it takes 2 hours. We finally leave. My sister goes out first, and as she leaves, we look in horror as we see hanging from the back of her hat is my little brother's sweat sock. It's one of those that had the red and the blue stripe on it. Bright white because it was clean, but it was, you know how you just can't quite get that ground-in dirt out of the toe and the heel? So it was just glowing, just hanging there over her daisy chain. And by association, I'm next to her. I'm next to the girl with the sweat sock hanging from her hat in the front row. My mother's, oh, Sean, nobody noticed. They were all looking the other way. Stations of the Cross or whatever, I don't know. We were horrified. It was shame and embarrassment by association. But instead of consoling her, my mother came up with, oh, would some power the gifty gie us to see ourselves as others see us? I used that many times after that, like the time I had the juicy fruit wrapper stuck in my pantyhose all through sophomore, or my 8th hour or whole class in sophomore year. But it was so appropriate that day. I found out later. My sister and I were chatting about it. I think I reminded her probably, at least every Easter. Remember, Sean, that time you had the sweat sock hanging on this? But it was so appropriate because that was from Robert Frost, I think 1894, something around there, I don't know, 1894. And the name of the poem was To a Louse, on being seen on a lady's bonnet in church.
I'm not sure Patty said how old the brother was, but if he was a young teenager, that is not a sock you want stuck on your bonnet. If you would like to hear some more stories from Patty, check out Aluminum, our podcast for Aluminum. She has one of my favorite stories about a Catholic going to a Protestant birthday party. Things get really weird. Yeah, that's good. StoryStoryNight.org has the link to our podcast, I think. All right, next up tonight, we go back to a featured storyteller. Again, her first time on our stage. Please welcome Sarah Inama.
So I spend about 40 hours a week with the coolest people they'll have you know. And they are my 12-year-old students. And they do a lot of cool things that they think are cool. They've got this cool hairstyle going on now where they cup up the front so it looks like they've been skateboarding with a hat on, but they wouldn't want to use a curling iron. They just push it up themselves. They say things that make no sense to any of us. Skibbity, Ohio, Rizzler, cap, no cap. We're cooking, which is good, but to be cooked is bad. So these are things that I've heard quite a bit. And they also like to humble me in things that I think are cool, like getting to class on time and sitting in your assigned seat that's the same assigned seat that you've had for the past 5 weeks. And it's not cool to be assigned a partner, and it's very not cool to have to listen to 90s throwbacks in class, and they let me know. But every once in a while, our cool universes collide. Like the other day, I was playing a video about Japan's geography for our Ancient Japan unit, and the guy in the video was talking about the landscapes of Japan, and turns out that Japan has about 67% mountainous land, and they all turn to me and they go, "Oh." And I go, "Yes, okay. I actually love it, and you guys will all get an A on the test if I put that as a question." So if you don't know 6-7, you're better for it, so it's okay. Anyway, back in March, I experienced another time where what I considered cool and what my students considered cool kind of became the same, and it was an interesting experience for me and something that was very unexpected. Back in a day in March, I drove to school, and I was not only planning for the assignments that I was going to give out that week and the way I was going to engage my students in different activities and try and keep it light and fun, but I was also thinking about if any of my colleagues would talk to me, what they might say to me, how long it would take for my administration to come down and talk to me, and if I would even have a job at the end of the day. And that day, I spent mostly alone in my classroom with just my students. And there were little things here and there, like, "Oh, my mom saw you on the news last night." Or, "I heard that you were on TV, Mrs. Inama." And kind of by the end of the day, I felt like, okay, I made it. I think this will kind of just go away. And I couldn't help but dive deep into the comments that people had left on different social media posts about the news story that I was in. And they had said things like, "She's not a professional. She is virtue signaling. She is a bad teacher for having a sign up in her classroom that makes her students think that they're different." Things like that. And it is not a very cool feeling to feel like you are misunderstood and to be kind of ripped to shreds by people that don't know you and probably have never spent a significant amount of time in a classroom. And the next day I came to school, and before first period started, I heard a familiar sound. It was my own voice. And 2 students in my classroom were playing a YouTube video of my interview. They were trying to play it at the exact same time so that they could watch it on their own screens, but it was twice as loud. And I was like, okay. And it dawned on me, like, I didn't want my students to know this conflict that I had been a part of. And the questions that I was answering in the interview were about a sign in my classroom that had read, "Everyone is welcome here." And the questions that I was answering was about why I had to take it down and why I was asked to take it down. And it was because I was told that this is an opinion and that not everybody believes this. And because there happen to be hands on it that show a variety of skin tones, it is now controversial. And it really, to see my students watch that moment made me think about how I had hoped they'd never know that there were adults who thought that them just existing based on the way that they looked was an opinion and was tied to some sort of political platform in some way or controversial for any reason. And I worried very much that this would crush their spirit. Some of them who needed to ask me why would this need to come down? What does that mean? Why is that a problem? But as the days went on that week, I noticed that not only were their spirits not crushed by that, but they were the ones that understood me the most. They showed up the next day in homemade shirts that said, "Everyone is welcome here," that they drew with markers, and they were still wearing them on the last day of school, which made me think about how much they didn't wash those shirts. They made friendship bracelets that said equality and everyone is welcome. And those that didn't have friendship bracelets made bracelets out of notebook paper that said Team Inama. And some of them said Free Inama, which made me think that they knew something that I didn't. But they made a website that said, "You should support us. We don't know when or where or how, but email my dad at this email below." They drew with chalk outside of my school and outside of the district office to show their support of me. And they said things like, "We know that this is true in our classroom. This might not be true other places, but this is true in our classroom, Mrs. Inama." And I had students from years prior email me and say, "You always had a classroom that was welcoming, and those signs made a difference to me, and they might not have meant anything to anybody, but on day one, I knew that I was welcome in your classroom." And they got it. They got me. They understood me. And as they were supporting me, I started to realize they're doing what I've always wanted my students to do and what I've always wanted to make cool. And that's for them to be kind to each other and support each other and make their classroom a place that they all want to belong for each other. And they might have felt like they were being there for me, but they were really being there for each other, which is what I had always wanted. And one day my secretary called me and she's like, "You are gonna have to come down here and pick up your mail." So I came down to the front desk and I had lots of bouquets of flowers, some from random people, some from my friends, some from other people that worked at the district office. And there were like 10 boxes of pastry perfection cookies in the shape of hands, and the icing was in all different skin tones. So cute, and we all shared them. There were baskets from book clubs that had dropped them off, and baskets from different religious organizations around town. And then, I don't even know what they're called, but the big plastic bins that the mailmen carry the mail in. So all my mail was in there, and I'd take it back to my classroom in that. And the next day we did a Greek Olympics simulation outside, and I told the kids they could make a flag for their own city-state, and they could design their flag the way they wanted. And one of my groups made their flag say, "Everyone is welcome in Athens." And throughout the next month, maybe 2 months, I just kept receiving so much mail. And the students would say, "When we're done with our work early, can we open some fan mail?" And so we would sit together and we'd look at the envelope. We learned a little bit about the abbreviations of states, where everything came from. We'd open them and read letters from people in Michigan and classrooms in Florida and veterans that had written us a song and people in Texas, and then it started to show up from Sweden and New Zealand and some posters from China and little handmade knickknacks and bracelets. And of course the kids were like, we got money, we got so much money. People sent us, and I was like, they're sending me money to buy myself a cocktail. I don't, if you can read that, okay. But I squirreled the money away, and I thought about what I would do with it. I mean, I'm sure my 12-year-olds and I could have thought of a million ways to spend all the money, but I saved it. And towards the end of the school year, when I realized that I would not be coming back to the school because I could not comply with their request to take down my poster, I decided that I would spend the money on something more than just donuts or pizza. I bought sunglasses for all 150 of my students, and little letter beads and gemstones and jewelry glue. And we spent our last day bedazzling our sunglasses. They bedazzled me a pair. And they had helped me pack up my classroom, and literally the last thing that I packed up was my sign. And when I took it down, they filmed a video, and they all signed the back of it. And they wrote things like, everyone is welcome here no matter what. And I realized that what I had wanted to be cool for them, like they had made cool, and they had made me feel so cool by standing up for them because I love them. And I miss them very much. And that last day of school, I don't know if it was because just when you experience something that in hindsight seems kind of tragic, where you were never emotional through the whole thing, and then it finally ends and you just feel so emotional. I finally felt like it was over, and I felt bad that I had to end it by leaving them. And the tears just started pouring. And it was the first time that I had felt really, really sad. And as my husband drove me to the bar, I did have one thing to cover up the tears. They were my Mrs. Inama sunglasses. And I wore these all the way to get a margarita because the coolest thing is that you remember your values and you stick to them, even when it's hard, and especially when you're able to tell a bunch of racists to kiss your ass.
Thank you so much. So let's get to this cool message from our season sponsor. And I like to surprise our musicians by asking for insurance music. But Alex was already here, so she knew it was coming, maybe. You forgot. Okay, good. All right, so this can be a solo, a duet, whatever you want. Just some cool, jazzy insurance music. Yeah. HSA, FSA, PPO, TPA, ACA, CAA. If you just nodded and smiled, you're not alone. Honestly, decoding your benefits feels like trying to understand chopped unk 6-7. No cap and other Gen Z slang. You're pretty sure someone just said something important, but you have no idea what it means. Here's the thing. You shouldn't need a translator to understand your own health plan. At Keenly, we ditch the jargon. No alphabet soup here, just clear, straightforward benefits that actually make sense. We explain things in plain English because confident employees are employees who feel taken care of. That's not just cool confidence, that's Keenly confidence. Ready to feel confident about your benefits? Reach out to Keenly Benefits today. Wow, that was awesome. Thank you. All right. We're going to give you a chance to visit the bar, refresh your drinks. Also, Jimmy and Frank are in the hallway with our merch table. My book is out there if you still haven't gotten a copy of that. We also have punch cards that make great gifts. They get 4 shows to Story Store Night. They can spread them out however they like. We have stickers for sale, or you can win it by coming up here and telling a story. Tote bags, t-shirts, everything. We'll see you back here in 10 minutes. Alex Sjobeck and Ben Britton. What's pretty cool is Ben actually drove here from Twin Falls to be with us tonight, and he's heading back right after the show. So thank you for coming in and making our night special.
My pleasure.
Could I ask our featured storytellers to come back on stage, please? And then also, will you bring that slammer bag? Slammer cooler, slammer something or other. We're gonna start with the story slammer. Remember, you have 5 minutes. When your time is running up, I will slowly creep up upon you and sidle up to you, and then I will remove my sunglasses in a judgmental way. Kind of like that. All right, let's see what we've got, Susan. Oh, wow. There's a bunch of smiling faces with sunglasses in there tonight. That's great. And it looks like, oh, I recognize this name as being one of our story subscribers, I think. Please welcome to our stage, Barbara Urcher.
I thought what might fit this time would be, it's probably nerd cool, but it's cool to me, and a lot of you might like this. Had to do with, we have a family cabin at McCall, and I like to go out kayaking. And so when my mother was in her declining years, so when I'd get a phone call, I had to make sure if something had happened, and I was out paddling, didn't want to answer the phone over the water, so pulled up off the shore on Ponderosa Park and was talking to my brother. And looked down. I was standing on plant fossils. Has anybody seen plant fossils here before? And so I kind of asked around through my channels and finally linked up with a guy in Michigan who actually spent summers in Caldwell looking at plant fossils. And he says, no, I kind of a few things, but nobody's really found much. And so I it was kind of something fun to do, go back and look for some more. And we kept finding more. And eventually we pieced together what's actually a pretty cool forest that used to grow where McCall is now. 16.5 million years ago. There were redwoods and ginkgo trees growing in Bacall. Is that cool? I think so. Along with oaks and willows and maples and a few, things that don't even have modern analogs. But it was just kind of fun and cool to be part of all this discovery, and I kept going and finding more, and we're still trying to get them all described, but it's just fun. And then I said, we need to make a story out of this, and approached, I'd already had to work with the people at the Ponderosa State Park because it was, their land, and we couldn't just go and dig. One of the other paleobotanists came in, we want to do a big trench, and I said, I don't think they want us to build a big trench in the middle of the park. So didn't do that, but we could still do our little things that weren't conspicuous, and started accumulating more and more and more, and worked with the park people there over several years, and eventually got, if you haven't been up there to see the interpretive center, we've got a display and all this, but that was cool, to be able to do something that then you could build an outreach and let more people know what's cool. And that's what nerd cool is. And what was also cool was all the friends that I met and the colleagues that I didn't know before. That these things build out and you make links with new people. And eventually one of the cool things too was we found out, actually, no, I had not been the one who first stumbled across this. One of our friends, 20 years earlier, had stumbled across it when he was a grad student. And but at the time, he was a grad student, and just early career, and he was heading off to the tropics, and had sent some of the fossils that he'd found to the guy in Berkeley, and there's some stuff here, but it's not that cool. And so he ended up doing other things, and rather than pursuing, and it took, me coming by and, hey, what's fun to do in the summer? Let's go look for fossils. And I'll actually be going over to Caldwell tomorrow, breaking rocks, is what I like to call it, is taking some of the fossils that I collected a month ago and trimming them off. And those will then are waiting for the guy from Michigan to come out again and tell me what they are. And that's cool. So anyhow, that's my example of geek cool. Thank you.
That's how you do it. See, the sunglasses didn't come off. Good job. One of the cool things I got to do as a kid at Ponderosa State Park was go with my sister to see the meteor shower in late August. And the interesting thing about cool is I think there's the other side. There's the not cool part, and then you're in the cool zone. But I think there's something at the other end of it that I've experienced, particularly with nature a couple of times, and that is when it's so cool, it gets a little scary. So like being there with my sister alone by the office at Ponderosa State Park and looking up and just seeing lights just flying through the sky. Like it was really cool, but then also we're like, it's really dark and scary. The other time that happened was driving through Iceland. I lived there for a time. I was very lucky to be able to live there. That was a lot of fun. We were driving over a mountain pass, unlit, just our headlights, nothing else on the road. And all of a sudden, the sky the northern lights just filled it. And I had seen them several times, but this time it was like they were starting to reach down towards me. And then that's when the cools went to the scary phase. I was like, what if it touches you? What happens? Do you turn into like Spider-Man or something? I don't know. Well, we don't have Spider-Man for you tonight, but we do have a very cool featured storyteller next up for you. Please welcome to our stage, but not for the first time on stage, but the first time on our stage, Dakotah Brown.
This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. So I'm sitting 8 rows back from the stage at the Wilshire Theater in downtown Los Angeles watching a production of Rent, and Roger is singing the opening notes of one song, Glory. I am transfixed. This is my favorite song from my favorite musical that I'd had on repeat on my iPod all year. And finally, I'm getting to hear it in person. Find one song, one last refrain, glory from the pretty boy front man who wasted opportunity. The whole theater is transfixed. All eyes are on him. It is electric. I get this feeling from the bottom of my feet, like hot magma filling up the rest of my body. And I know at this moment, this is what I want to do. That's who I want to be. I want to be Roger from Rent singing One Song Glory. I want to be One Song Glory. I'm going to be that cool. But I am about to barely graduate high school after a Herculean effort to pull up my math and government grades. I am a burgeoning theater student attending William Howard Taft High School in the San Fernando Valley, a town where you can't swing a stick without hitting a P.F. Chang's. It's a sort of a haven for upper middle class social climbers who desire nothing more than to move into one of those houses on stilts in the Topanga Canyon, or a mansion somewhere in the hills of Studio City. My parents had recently bought a house there on auction at way under market price after just getting their foot in the door of the entertainment industry. My stepdad was hired on to a new adult animated sitcom called Family Guy. And my... Give it up for Family Guy, yeah. And my mom was working as a production assistant in the same building. I, meanwhile, was slinging smoothies at a Jamba Juice. My mom drove a gold Saturn sedan. I rode the bus. We were nouveau middle class, for sure. Just a year prior, I had transferred from another high school in West LA, where I was part of a Burger King kids club of like-minded dorks who spent every weekend piling into one of another's houses to just hop into sleeping bags and play Nintendo 64 until the wee hours of the morning. Never my house, though. My parents didn't really have patience for children. So, at the Wilshire Theater, meanwhile, post-show, me and 30 other millennial rent heads are waiting with bated breath, clutching our programs tight, looking at the stage door, waiting for the cast to come out. The door opens and they begin to pour out, talking, laughing, and lighting cigarettes, and we all extend our programs with trembling hands, hoping for some autographs. Maureen signs my program, Mark signs my program, Benny signs my program, Joanne signs my program, and finally, I am face to face with the actor playing Roger, who's a guy named Constantine, who's in the 4th season of American Idol, by the way. He's a contestant. That is neither here nor there. He looks me genuinely in the eye, thanks me for attending, and autographs my program. And I hold it close, like some kind of guiding star, like a talisman. And I know one day I'm gonna be you, dude. I am gonna be that cool. So no one was more surprised than me that that was enough motivation for me to make it into college, make it through 3 exhausting years of theater training, which feels sort of like you're going to a ninja clown school. You dress in black, you walk quietly, you learn tumbling. And finally, I graduated with an advanced degree, moved back to the Valley, and I am staring at a computer screen, looking down the barrel of an email from Sarah Bruner, the current artistic director of the Idaho Shakespeare Festival, who at the time was directing the school outreach Shakespeare program. It was an acceptance email to play Othello in Idaho. Yeah, that's what I said. It was really cool. The big guy himself, speaking Shakespeare. My first time in Idaho was an adventure where I got to drive the whole length of the entire state doing a show that was cool. The costumes were cool. We looked like we had just walked off of the runway of an Italian fashion show. The set was cool. It was all steel and bulletproof glass. The show was cool. The storytelling was cool. The combat was cool. The cast was attractive. The rest of the cast. And so I found myself finally in the position where I could walk into any auditorium or gym in the state of Idaho and take a room full of exhausted high school students who all had their heads down or were looking at their phones, and by the end of the show, I had them in the palm of my hand. All eyes were on me. At one performance up in Orofino, Idaho, as we were driving up to the front of the school, the students had written signs, Welcome, Shakespeareans, the name of the program. Othello, we're so excited. We can't wait. We're stoked. We drove up, loaded all of our set and everything in, and it was one of the best shows we'd had. We tore it up. By the end, we got a standing ovation. Everyone was on their feet. I knew I was cool. I knew I was one song glorying it. And as we wrap up the show, students file down from the bleachers and ask us for autographs. Now, I'm that guy. And as we're taking apart our set, the entire basketball team runs down from the bleachers, whips off their shirts, and starts playing the hardest game of pickup I have ever seen. Like, we filled that gym with so much cool that they had to retake their territory and impress us right back. So, I'm standing now on a makeshift stage at the Grove Plaza, just across the way, acting my heart out. I had landed an independent acting gig providing entertainment for a corporate pancake breakfast. And I thought, not wisely, but I thought that why not perform selected scenes from Othello? It had worked in the state of Idaho at high school, so why wouldn't it work at this corporate pancake breakfast? So I am acting my heart out. I am overacting my heart out. I am undercaffeinatedly overacting my heart out. Me and my good friend Luke Massengill, the Iago to my Othello, performing for this pancake breakfast. And we are being upstaged by pancakes. No one is looking. No eyes are on me at all. I feel the cold drip of shame run down my spine. I feel the guilt of having roped my friend into this gig. In a desperate bid to make some kind of connection with the audience, I ask them for suggestions. One person shouts, Irish. Someone else shouts, Transformers. So we run it back and start performing Othello as Irish Transformers. Yeah. Faith, false to me. How dare she? It was terrible. It was terrible. It was one of the biggest bricks in my career. I left there feeling nothing but shame. So, I'm now upstairs in the offices of the Idaho Shakespeare Festival. The pancake breakfast fiasco is years behind, long enough for me to have buried it well deep in my psyche. And now, I am directing the same production that got me into Idaho in the first place. I find myself as the director of the Shakespeareans School Outreach Tour program, directing my favorite Shakespearean rom-com, Much Ado About Nothing. I had chosen a vaporwave aesthetic to apply to the whole show, to heighten the themes of modern meeting classical. It's a very 80s aesthetic mashed with internet culture of the 90s, and I'm looking at the cast during their final dress performance, and they are cool. They look cool. The set is cool. They're all wearing these mirrored geometric 80s sunglasses, and I am so excited for them to earn their standing ovation at Orofino High School, because I know that's gonna happen. I get a feeling in the back of my brain, yes, this is cool, but it might be something a little bit bigger than that. A little bit later, I'm in the basement of the same building. Musty basement, tiny basement, and the final performance of a teens clowning class that I've been teaching. There can't be any more than 20 people in the room, all parents and friends and families, right? And the last student's about to perform. This student's the son of a friend of mine. And for this particular bit, I've brought in 10 random household objects. This is a clowning lesson. A whisk, an egg beater, a Duraflame log, a bunch of newspapers, a heap of paper towels. And I task the students with taking 5 minutes to become an expert in your random object and then showcase a performance based on what you've done. This last student has picked the paper towels. I am skeptical. So, he begins to meticulously fold these paper towels with the focus of a craftsman. The room starts to get quiet, and everyone gets laser focused on what this student is doing with these paper towels. We wait for a quiet minute until he reveals a boat, a paper towel boat that he's origamied out of paper towels. He gets down on his belly, starts at one side of the room, and slowly begins to push this boat across the space. the room falls silent. Everyone is transfixed by the journey of this paper towel boat. We gasp when it begins to capsize. It hits choppy waters. We all hold our breath. We're holding each other's hands. Finally, after meticulous minutes of just crawling from one side of the room to the other, the boat reaches shore, and everyone loses their minds. They applaud, they jump, they scream. I'm looking at this kid's mom, she is weeping. And I realize at that moment, this is cool. Beyond that, it's cooler than cool. It's bigger than cool. This is magic. Just these 20 people in this room experiencing this story of humanity and creativity and imagination as we're watching a 16-year-old push a paper towel boat across a room. But we were all with that journey. And I understood then that I'd spent so much time trying to be seen, trying to have all eyes on me, and now suddenly all eyes were on him, and it was magic. You can spend a lot of time trying to be seen, but the real humanity, the real magic is in being one of the people who sees. I had spent years trying to create these internal cool guy sunglasses, and finally, I realized the magic of just taking them off. Thank you.
Hey, Wave Master Paul, can you make a vapor wave on the Boise River? That was in his story. Vapor wave? No, work on it. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. I once was brought into a now defunct podcast called CityCast Boise to discuss Boise's standing ovation problem. Because I am often, and this sounds very egotistical, but I'm often a person in the audience who is not standing. The rest of the audience is up on their feet, and I'm like, it was good. I don't know, it's me. So we talked about how, Boise is very enthusiastic about their standing ovations, which, it's good energy, but there's some issues with that too. But I have to tell you, I was at a performance of this man's, at Alley Repertory Theater, a performance called The Royale, and you could not have kept me in my seat at the end of that show. The final moments of the show, Dakotah was playing this character and was standing in the light with his fist up in the air, and I was just overwhelmed and amazed. Absolutely amazing. So we have a very talented person in our community here. And you can see some of the talents that he was just speaking about, where he is giving guidance to others. Boise Bard Players is currently producing a production of Othello, directed by Dakotah Brown. Boise Bard Players, you can look that up. Yep. All right, bring me the contraption, the coolness. All right, here comes Ben. I mean, Ben's pretty cool, isn't he? Look at this. He looks like has secrets. Do you have secrets? Ben? All right, we're going to bring up to the stage for his 5-minute story, Louis Katz. No one's come from that side yet tonight.
What was that?
No one came from that side yet tonight. You surprised? All right, we're ready. You good?
Cool. Are you good?
Yeah, good.
I'm good. Are you good? So I have a question. Why is it that people with real cancer look down on those of us who've only ever had skin cancer? Okay, not a cancer crowd. That's not my story. It's just something I've been wondering about since this morning. I sold my IT business in January to become a professional speaker. My official title is roaming teller. I'm on day 56 at CapEd Credit Union. They haven't got rid of me yet. Now, the other day, an old man named Nick walked into the credit union, and hang on a second. Oh, let's rewind a little bit. So anyway, at the credit union, I like to hog all the members. And the way that I do it is by, as soon as they come in the door, I raise my hand, I say, welcome to the credit union. Come to my line because everybody else always hogs all the members. And so then, of course they see the hand waving and they come to my line, and that's how I hog all the members. But last week, old Nick, he's like 85 years old. He comes in and I'm waving my arms and he says, Louis, I'm not coming to your line. You're ugly. Did I mention? So on this side is a young, pretty girl. And on this side is also a young, pretty girl. And I'm in the middle. And I'm like, I'm pretty too. And he's just giving me a dirty look. And now you're ugly. And I say, well, oh yeah, Nick, well, you're old. And my name's Barney. And your socks don't match. And I shouldn't be using his real name anyway. So let's call him Fred. Now, Fred was a client of mine when I was an IT guy. And that is his real name, but I'm not going to get in trouble for using it. For one thing, because I was my own boss, and for another thing is that Fred is dead. Anyway, Fred, the first time I showed up at Fred's place, he yelled he got really, really mad. And he was used to just letting his temper fly because he had once been the president of all three major television networks back in the 60s and the 70s. Look him up, Fred Silverman. Real name. I'm not going to get in trouble with the credit union for that. So anyway, instead of, forget about Nick. Let's just call him Fred. No, you know what? Let's call him Andy. The first time I worked for Andy, I said, there's no way I will ever work for Andy ever again. The second time I worked for Andy, I said, I will never work for Andy again. Now, suppose Andy walked into the credit union and said, I'm not going to your line, Louis. You're ugly. Well, it just so happens that soon after that, another member came up, and she wanted to learn all about the dark web. Now, on the dark web, people traffic in information, right? So I'm thinking, hey, instead of just telling her about how to avoid the dark web, what if I demonstrate by using Nick's social security number? I mean, Fred, Andy, whatever. Now, if I use Andy's real social security number here, the credit union is probably going to be upset. So I'm not. Or am I? You know what? The cool thing would, okay. Show of hands. Real social security number? Anybody? No, I'm going to do it. But my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. And just to be clear, CapEd is not one of our sponsors. We welcome them. We welcome them. But they are not. Yeah, so that's some of that slammer energy I was referring to earlier. And I'd love to have some more. So bring me back that cooler. Let's see if we've kept these names nice and cool and see who we might pull out of there next. I was in a different mindset when he said that he'd left his IT job to be a roaming teller. I was thinking of like a sort of minstrel storyteller or something. I'm a roaming teller. What would you like to hear? Well, we would like to hear from Carolyn Johnson is what we would like to hear. Carolyn, come on up. Returning to our stage, although I think most recently at our late night show. So now we have her at Flagship. Very excited to hear your 5-minute smiling face with sunglasses story.
Hello. My story takes place about 10 years ago in my hometown of Louisville, Kentucky. And something that you may or may not know that Louisville houses or homes is the Derby. Do y'all know about that? Small thing. And, they have the hats and the dresses and the money and the infield. And at the infield, everybody is just so drunk. And there's dudes that are just getting lifted up onto the porta potties and running as fast as they can, and they call it the porta potty derby until everyone gets kicked out. I haven't been there, but I've heard stories. So this derby in particular, I was at home, and I was hanging out with my boyfriend at the time. And also something that you guys may or may not know about are the lettuces of the devil variety. Do you smell what I'm stepping in? Can I get a yeah? Yeah. Okay, great. One person. You and I are friends. And so I was partaking in that night, and very spicy, very fun. The highest quality that Kentucky street devil lettuce could purchase. And we're probably watching some Game of Thrones episode, and I get a text from my friend, very, very cool friend, okay? And her role for the day was to dress celebrities for the Derby. And so she's picking out outfits, and it's these like very high class people. And she texts me and she says, "Caroline, do you have any devil lettuce to sell to one of my clients?" And I was like, sure, why not? And so she wouldn't tell me who it was, and so she said, "Meet me here." And it was a hookah bar, and I was like, okay, cool. And so I'm sitting there with my boyfriend and this little baggie in my pocket, and I'm so nervous because I'm like 20. and in walks my friend, and right behind her was Nevada Mandela. And I sold devil's lettuce to Nelson Mandela's grandson. Thank you.
Carolyn, you have to take your poster and your sticker. You have to. The Mandelas will be coming after for the information later. Okay, wow. I'm also a person who probably didn't know what devil's lettuce was. But in Portland, I went through a period of time where my hair was kind of down to here. I had a goatee, mustache. My dad said I was trying to learn to draw, and I was doing a self-portrait, and he's like, "Do you think that looks handsome?" And I was like, not really. And he said, well, why do you keep it that way? I was like, I don't know. But I was waiting at a bus stop in Portland, and someone came up to me and asked if I had any nickels or dimes, because I had that look, I guess, of someone who would be selling whatever he was looking for, except I didn't know what he was looking for. I was rifling through my pocket for change and saying, sorry, man, all I got are quarters. All right, we have time for one more slammer, because I only have one more poster and one more sticker. So that means that this last person, we have a lot of tickets in here, which is really fun. So I hope your next opportunity to slam will be at our show at the Visual Arts Collective on December 15th, and then back here next month on December 30th. But this person doesn't have to wait, and it's Alex Krell. Here he comes. All right, Alex. He looks kind of tall.
This thing doesn't come off.
Do we need to pick another name?
Yeah, pick another name. Do you guys want a dark story, or do you want like kind of a happy, enlightening story? Let's go dark because it's more interesting, okay? I was born in a small town in Illinois called Freeport. It's like an hour outside of Chicago. It's where the gangbangers go to retire. Depending on the graffiti on the street sign, it's either free pork, free pot, or free porn. So Freeport, yeah, that's kind of where I was raised. And my mom was a dental hygienist. This is all kind of lead up to the main story, which isn't a story at all. It's got a lame ending and kind of a, yeah, it's just dark with a lame ending. So just to prep for you all, it's got. Okay, so my mom, dental hygienist, she had headaches and was kind of a crazy kind of bat. And either way, she got caught up in the opioid epidemic in the early 2000s, right? So in her dental hygienist years, she started taking some oxys or whatever, hydrocodone, whatever they call it. So she kind of devolved into what you would call drug addiction. So then I was raised by my social worker dad, who the first time my good friend Haley met him was bailing him out of jail for screaming at his girlfriend, and he was cool. He was really charismatic and nice to everybody, but my aunts would say like, "Hey, Alex, we kind of know, like, keep it up, good job, you're doing great." So that was kind of my upbringing, was absent mom, kind of crackpot dad, whatever, charismatic. When I was 18, I joined the Marine Corps. I went to Iraq and Afghanistan and did kind of my work over there. I was an intelligence analyst, which is cool. I was wanted to be like James Bond or CIA guy. I wanted free college because I was born and raised in a small kind of poor town in Illinois. So anyway, I did that kind of thing, went to college, and kind of getting out of the Marine Corps and going to college, I kind of had this kind of depth in me where it was like I needed some more out of life. I was kind of bored with bartending and construction and college and all this stuff. And I'd always wanted to be a firefighter, so I became a firefighter. But still, there's this thing in me that was like, I kind of want to go to war. That's not a good feeling, okay? So anyway, I'm scrolling on Instagram like we do, right? And up comes this organization, this nonprofit, and it's for this organization that's looking for combat deployed military members turned professional firefighters that would like to go to Ukraine that maybe have been in the intelligence world because they were looking for an intelligence guy. With that, all that being said, I was still highly, highly underqualified to do that. But I submitted my resume anyway because I was kind of searching for something. So anyway, I end up broken. There's 8 years in between this where I've gone to college, my brother kills himself. You asked for dark. Either way, he's honest. I like it. Either way, I end up in Ukraine post-trauma, and we're working with the Ukrainian firefighters, and we're doing structural collapse and search and rescue in 2022, and when Russia's just bombing the crap out of these cities. And they ask us to dig up these mass graves, and it's very interesting. Like, man, I don't know how I find myself here. So anyway, we're doing all of this work. During that time, girlfriend breaks up with me, I come back, and I'm all broken and everything like that. Either way, at the end of the day, I learned something about myself. The thing that I ultimately learn is that through brokenness and through some weird, strange, convoluted life story, trauma leads to trauma, right? That in the midst of all of that, people are coming up to me, Ukrainian women, and politics aside, they're hugging me and they're crying and they're just thankful for showing up. Just for me with an American flag patch on my shoulder, they just see that me, this group of Australian firefighters, this group of American firefighters, rescue workers, are there and just showing our support and loving on them. And I guess in all of this is, I guess what I want to say, I know kind of my time is up, but that whatever your situation is and wherever you're at, however you can show up in the world despite where you're at, means something to somebody. And so your skill set matters, and who you are matters, and what you've gone through that puts you in a strange situation in the middle of Eastern Europe. There's people that will appreciate and care for you as much as you care for them, so just put in the effort. Love and be loved.
Thank you for listening. If you'd like to see the storytellers in addition to hearing them, this entire show is available on the Story Night YouTube channel. Support this podcast by texting StoryPod to 44321. Story Night is funded in part by the Idaho Commission on the Arts and the National Endowment for the Arts. We also receive funding from the Boise City Department of Arts and History. Thank you to our media sponsor, Radio Boise, our show sponsor, Boise Group, and our season sponsor, Keenly. Podcast production is by Stephen Baldessari. Our theme song was composed by Dan Costello, with guest musicians Alex Sjobeck and Ben Britton. You can rate and review this show on Apple Podcasts. Please subscribe to Story Night wherever you download your podcast. Have a story? Call the Storyline at 208-917-1970 and leave a message, or click the Storytellers tab on our website. Find out how to participate in our live show at storynight.org, or visit us on Instagram or Facebook. I'm Jodi Eichelberger. Thank you for being a part of our story.